Welcome to the refresher training for Science Unit 1, Lesson 3 on Analogies in Science. So in this lesson, students are going to do a chemical reaction simulation activity where they will look at chemicals when enzymes are present and when they aren't present. And so to start them out, they're going to discuss their understanding about digestion as a series of chemical reactions based upon what they read in the text. Then they'll talk about how science uses the term analogy. And so analogies used two ways. So one is to make science concepts more concrete. So for example, we might compare blood and blood vessels to water and water pipes. We might compare DNA helix to like a twisted ladder. But those analogies are never exactly perfect. So they use it as a way to make science concepts more concrete by showing some other example, and analogies are also used as another word for model. So they're used interchangeably in that way. So like a model of the solar system could also be called an analogy of a solar system. And again, students need to understand that these analogies are not perfect. The veins in your body are not really like a hose. The double helix is not really like a ladder, but they are a good way to sort of get that representation. So we're going to use several different iterations of analogies to get that point across. So they're going to understand the role of analogies, and also by the end of this lesson will understand the role of enzymes in chemical reactions. So what do you need to know? So this is a pretty active kind of lesson, and there'll be 3 rounds of the analogy activity. In round 1, they're going to understand the role that reactant pairs can find each other without an enzyme present, but that it takes longer. So we're going to do that using analogies, and I'll show you an example in a second. Round 2, we'll use those same analogies, but with an enzyme or a stand-in for an enzyme present. And then in round 3, we'll actually get into the enzymes, substrates, and products, so in actual chemical reactions. So for round 1, what you have in your lesson plan is a series of reactant pairs, right? So peanut butter will pair up with jelly and so forth. And what students will do, you'll cut these little squares apart and tape them onto students' backs so they don't know which one they have. They might have salt, they may have knife, they may have jelly, they may have night, whatever. And so what they'll do is they'll walk around the room trying to find their reactant pair, but they can't look at what's on their own back, and so they have to use other clues to find each other. You can set some parameters on, you can't, use words, you can only use symbols, whatever you want to do. The fact is that without being able to look on your back, you don't really know who you're matching up with. It'll happen eventually, and sometimes it'll happen quickly by chance, but in general, it's going to take a long time to find your reactant pair. Once students are done with that one, we're ready for round 2, and what round 2 is the same analogies from round 1, only now there's this enzyme to help. So for that peanut butter and jelly example, what you'll do this time is cut out that little bread of jelly and the little bread of peanut butter, and what's left is the plate. So peanut butter and jelly will have something taped to their back, but whoever the person is who is the enzyme will be able to hold that piece of paper to see that they have this plate with 2 sort of empty slots, and they need to find those pieces to put together. Because they have that information in front of them, right? Because the enzyme knows what it's doing and is looking for specific shapes to put into their, to complete the picture, they'll be able to do that round a whole lot faster. And so the round with the enzymes will happen much quicker, just like it does in the body. So there really isn't any chance here. It's enzymes looking for particular reactants as it goes. That's round 2. In round 3, what you'll need to do is cut these into sort of puzzle piece shapes. So two students will have each student will have a half of the puzzle, and they'll need to find the other piece so that they'll know that renin goes with casein because it's the only match for the puzzle. It's the only one shaped that way, just the same way as enzymes work. There's only certain substrates that will fit. There's only certain chemical reactants that will occur when an enzyme is present. So these 3 rounds will happen, and students will talk about what happened after each one, what was different, how it worked. And after they're done, they'll go and annotate chapter 4.1 on enzymes and metabolic rate, just that part of it. So they're going to use what they learned. They've already had one pass at that material by trying it out before they read the textbook chapter on enzymes, and it ought to make a whole lot of sense to them because they've just seen it happen. Once they've finished reading and annotating, what they want to be able to do is explain the diagram on page 75 using what they learned from the activity. So they're going to be thinking about what they know about the role of enzymes and substrates in a chemical reaction as they read and understand that diagram. Once they're done with that, they'll complete the model analysis questions that are in the academic notebook. So their goal here is not just to fill in the blanks, it's to demonstrate their understanding of the role of enzymes and analogies in science. So this is the diagram that they're going to need to be able to explain. And so they need to go beyond just the words that are on this diagram to see how the chemical reactions occur, how the enzyme is helping glucose and fructose find each other. And finally, they'll do a synthesis and application of what they learned. And so what they'll do is they'll read a case study on the role of enzymes with someone who has lactose intolerance. So they're going to read a case study of somebody who has lactose intolerance, and they're going to think about what they know about the role of enzymes to explain what's going on. And so what you need to do is to remind students to pull together the information from the text, the article, the animations, and the activity as they craft their response. They can use those guiding questions in the academic notebook to write up their analysis, and they also need to draw diagrams. So again, they're representing science in multiple ways to explain the role of enzymes. By the time they're finished with this lesson, they should both understand the importance of enzymes in the human body, but also the importance of analogies in science. And that right there is lesson 3.